Guys, welcome back to Actuaries in Creativity. So today we are shooting a special episode because I'm featuring my beautiful cousin Phiina Mwandingi, and she's a student in Cuba. So basically we're gonna talk about something that most people ask me to shoot about, which is basically just talking about life in general, being an international student in another country. And because she's a student in Cuba, so I wanted to feature her on my channel just to hear her perspective and what are some of maybe the challenges or like the positive impacts just from studying abroad. So the first question that I have is about people will say, okay, you're abroad, you're living a good life and whatnot, and just the surface of everything. So I just wanted to hear your perspective, like what are some of the challenges that you encounter just from being a student in Cuba?
Well, being a student abroad in general is, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Being a student abroad in general, whether it is just in a certain country or whether it's in another country in Africa, I think it's because it's not home.
Yeah.
You'll never feel you'll never feel at home. Being a student in Cuba is also another different situation. The Cuban lifestyle is completely different from ours, and if you face your different challenges on a day-to-day, being an African in a foreign land,
Exactly.
being a black person in a foreign land, being a Namibian in general in a foreign land. So there are the various aspects on which it impacts both negatively and positively on how you live your daily life.
So you mentioned about some of the challenges of being black, so I know that sometimes people are very ignorant and you encounter like people making ignorant comments or statements. And for example, I had a friend who asked me, oh, how do your houses look like? I had somebody ask me because we're in town and they said, oh, have you ever been in an elevator before? And I'm like, of course. So how do you deal with some of those comments or like statements?
That was one of the first challenges that I believe we overcame. We started off in a class with Cubans who had the general misconception from people all over the world, especially in the Americas, that Africans are primitive, that they're conservative, that they live in huts, that they run around naked with animals. So we took it upon ourselves, me and my team, to make sure that we change that conception, because sometimes it's ignorance because people really don't know, and that's the picture they're painted. But also other times it's just like also it's willful. Ignorance is willful, so they choose to also not see, because information is available on the internet. Pictures of Namibia are available on the internet. It only takes searching up Namibia to see how Namibians live, but people will choose to ask you, oh, you live in a hut, or you live where? So we took it upon ourselves. Every time we have like a festival of arts or like a showcasing of our tradition or culture, we download videos online and we showcase like the beautiful landscape, the skyscrapers in most of our cities, and like how we live, and we have Wi-Fi's at home.
I know, right?
Stuff like that.
In fact, I feel like most people, when you go that side, especially like in the Western world, they don't understand that sometimes you even, in my personal opinion, you've experienced better stuff than they. Okay, so about food, how is food like in Cuba? Because I'm finding it very challenging in the States. Most times people eat a lot of junk food and just, they eat healthy, but even the food, they have a lot of like inorganic food. And whereas here we are used to eating organic food without even thinking about it that we are eating organic food. And just like food, like the type of food you eat, the type of meals you prepare, how is it different that side?
It's completely different. The food in general is almost the same. Rice is the same everywhere, and chicken is the same everywhere. But sometimes it's also the availability of food, and also just it doesn't taste the same. But I'm glad, with every negative, there's always a positive. We have a lot of organic food. Every third street in Cuba has a market filled with bananas, tomatoes, onions, and it's rich from the soil with the sand. So like there's no preservatives, there's no anti-expiration agents or anything like that. So it's just, I think that's a great part about staying in Cuba. Like you have like a really diverse depending on the season, obviously, but there's like a really diverse amount, or like with the plants and the fruits that we eat, and it's very organic, so that's a good part.
That's good. Basically the last question is just about something that somebody asked or said on Instagram, which is about the identity crisis of being a student. And they are a Namibian student, but they asked me to talk about it from a perspective of being an international student, because they're sure we probably have, we encounter that probably on a deeper level because we're international students. Have you encountered something like that, and how do you deal with some of those things? Because these are like emotions, and
I think what people forget is that just because we're international students doesn't mean we're not students. Like what a UNAM student is facing on a daily basis is what we face as well.
Exactly.
And I think, and I'm not trying to make a comparison, but I believe like it's also even worse, because at least a UNAM student can get on a bus and go home and feel familiar, but then we don't have that that luxury. So we face the same things. You get bad grades, you pick yourself up. There's a professor that doesn't like you, you pick yourself up. There's a boy you like, you pick, things like this, like on a daily basis, like normal human being stuff. And then also there's sometimes I've encountered as well a racial crisis, a racial identity crisis. The one thing that I was always certain about was being black, because I'm African and I'm Namibian. But then you go to a place where there's a very diverse racial background. The Cubans have the Spanish and then the African slaves, and mixed Creole, and then you have mulattoes. Offensive, I know, but then you find yourself being treated a little differently because of your skin, and you start to wonder, like, wait, what is going on here? You're just as black as I am, but also we're looking at each other this way. So it's there are certain things that you face, and it also depends on which part of the world you're in. I'm sure a student from Namibia in London is facing a different type of crisis, and it's not always a crisis. I think it's also sometimes just it's necessary for learning and
it's
growing.
like finding yourself.
Exactly, and you start to identify like what you are good at and what you're not good at, and how you interact with people, which is one of the greatest things about studying abroad, is that you get to meet a lot of people from a lot of different countries, countries that you've never imagined, countries that you haven't even heard of sometimes. Like, and then you start to meet all these different people. I've met a lot of people from Africa and a lot of people from a lot of parts of the world, because Cuba is almost just like an international student hub. So it's been a really great opportunity as well. But it also helps, to identify that, like, what you value sometimes culturally, traditionally, or even just the beliefs and systems that you were brought up in, sometimes in another part of the world don't matter at all.
Exactly.
So now what you hold so, so highly and dearly in another person does not
It's
think
nothing,
it's anything.
So how do you keep your sanity? What are some of the things that you learned? Okay, when I feel like I'm out of place, or I'm getting in the wrong direction, what are some of the stuff that you've adopted to just like keep them to
I'm fortunate to have been blessed with a very supportive system, which is my family and my friends. I always like to, when I'm feeling a little low, I would always call my mom or my brothers, God rest her soul. But and my friends as well, they've also been very helpful. But I go to the gym, it helps.
Definitely.
I cook, it also helps. I go for a jog, I walk around. There are beautiful parks in Cuba, in Havana, so you always walk around, you sit, you get some fresh air, and I read a lot, which helps.
Okay,
so
that's good.
Yeah.
I think most of the stuff that you do to keep your sanity are similar to mine, but one thing that I found, because I'm very religious, I pray and just connect with my source of power a lot,
which is also very important.
So every time I feel like, okay, something is not emotionally or spiritually fine with me, I talk to God and I just pray, and somehow I gain the confidence, or the hope, and the strength and everything. So really, when you go through some of these things, you just need to trust in the process and just like talk to your source of power and everything. So it was a pleasure having you on the channel. I really, I'm sure people learned a lot, and they also had, your perspective or your views on some of this stuff. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.